So it's been 2 weeks since the new war between Israel and Palestine broke out, and the Hamas operation Al-Aqsa flood began. So far, the Palestinian death toll has passed 2,800 people. There are around 10,000 wounded and 1,000 people that are still under the rubble. The humanitarian cost of Israel's bombing campaign is indescribable and incomparable to anything incurred on the other side. To get the other side of things that we don't usually hear in the media, I wanted to come here to the Palestinian embassy and speak with His Excellency Ambassador Salah Abdel Shafi, who is both the Palestinian ambassador to Austria and the permanent observer at the United Nations in Vienna. Ambassador, thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you very much.
On October 7th, when this operation began and this new chapter started, can I just ask you what was going through your mind when you heard the news? What did you feel? What did you think?
I felt anger and sorrow. Sorrow, of course, because war is always connected with loss of life. But anger at the incapability of the international community to implement a just peace based on the two-state solution. We've been begging for the last years, the international community, to interfere, force Israel to end its brutal colonial occupation of the Palestinian territories so that we can have our independent sovereign state, so that Palestinians, as any other people in the world, can live in dignity in their own state. All our calls were ignored. To the contrary, the world was watching while Israel was continuing with its settler colonial endeavor in Palestine, the establishment of illegal colonies on Palestinian territories, incursions, more than 5,000 political prisoners, more than 15 years of the Gaza blockade. So we've been warning that this situation is not sustainable. And this is what I was thinking about when this happened on the 7th of October.
Do you think that there's an imminent Israeli ground invasion? They've called up an unprecedented amount of reservists, and there are reports that there are hundreds of thousands of Israeli troops coming. Do you think that this is imminent?
Possible, I don't know. I mean, there have been so many speculations about it. The Israelis have mobilized 300,000 reservists. They've mobilized basically all of their military power on the borders of Gaza. However, we know, Israel knows as well, that there are so many risks involved with this, with a possible ground invasion. Not only for the Israelis, but of course there will be a very, very high price to be paid by the civil population of Gaza.
The Israelis are touted as having one of the greatest armies in the world, and as we know, they receive billions of dollars from the Americans every year in military aid. How do you think it's possible that Hamas were able to get through the fence?
Well, first of all, the Israeli army was humiliated. I mean, one of the lessons that even if you have one of the strongest armies in the world, but on the other side, you have people who want to resist, who have the will to get rid of occupation, nothing can prevent people from striking back. Israel cannot expect people to throw flowers at them. And again, this is a lesson. You cannot, if you are in a state of oppressing other people, your army cannot protect you. And this is a lesson that Israel should learn, that there is no military solution. You cannot sustain occupation with military force. We hope that after the silence of the weapons, that the international community will realize that the ultimate security for Israel and safety for Israel lies in the security and safety of the Palestinian people.
Gaza has been described as a ghetto, a concentration camp, an open-air prison. Do you agree with those terms?
Oh, absolutely. I come from Gaza. I grew up in Gaza. Gaza is the biggest open-air prison on earth, with 2.3 million people, has the highest density of population in the world, lacks basic services. In fact, many years ago, UN issued a report saying by 2020, Gaza will become unlivable, which is the case. I mean, if we look at the number of beds in hospitals, the per capita number of beds, schools, water quality, electricity supplies, Gaza is unlivable. You know, in most areas of the Gaza, now, even without war, the quality of water is not even fit for animals. You know, the WHO, World Health Organization, put the minimum per capita consumption of water, the very, very minimum, at 80 liters per day. This is basically what you need for cooking, drinking, and Gaza has less than this. So add to this, of course, the extremely toxic quality of water. So yes, Gaza is the biggest open-air prison in the world.
I wanted to get back to the water in just a second. I just wanted to ask you about the fact that Hamas took hostages. We've seen the Israelis, for example, going into Nablus, into Jenin, carrying out similar incursions and raids, and they always bring back with them young men. Many of them go to administrative detention. Do you feel that this was a response to that, or that the Israelis brought this upon themselves?
No, again, by the way, Israel is holding 2.3 million people hostages in the Gaza Strip. The whole Gaza Strip is held hostage by Israel. Again, if you are occupying and oppressing another people, I wonder, the whole world is admiring the resistance of the Ukrainians against Russians. They're considered heroes. Our resistance is considered terror. This is utter double standards, double moral in the world community. International law and international humanitarian law is not a pick and choose. It's not a menu. Either this is universal, applies everywhere, or we end up in a world that is really not as many Western countries claim, or all of them actually claim, it's a rule-based world order. No, it is not a rule-based world order anymore.
Israel have killed a dozen journalists so far. They killed a Reuters photographer just the other day. 23 ambulances destroyed, totaled, 15 medical facilities destroyed. And, we constantly see them targeting journalists, medics, even the UN. What do you think would happen if the Palestinians did something like that and the media were to comment on it?
Listen, we always say we condemn in general any attacks on civilians, no matter from where and what the source is. And those who attack civilians should be held accountable. Look, there is a standing committee at the Human Rights Council in Geneva, a standing committee to investigate war crimes in the occupied territories and Israel. So we don't need get into, the business of scoring points. How many they killed, how many we killed. I think the only solution is to allow such an international investigation team to fly down there and do a thorough investigation. And those responsible for committing war crimes or crimes against humanity should be held accountable according to relevant international laws and regulations. Now, this is what is needed. Israel has been acting for more than 56 years with impunity. They've conducted so many massacres. They attacked civilians, and they simply get away with it. And now Israel is screaming, about, the vicious attacks of Hamas. Again, we don't need to get into this business of counting. It should be investigated, and those responsible should be held accountable. This is the only solution.
Yeah, when the ICC declared jurisdiction over Palestine, the Israelis were very, very angry, to say the least. We look at Shireen Abu Akleh, who was killed while covering the raids in Jenin, the Israeli raids, and now again a dozen journalists. Well, why do you think it is that no one calls this out? Because we're told that Israel is a democracy.
This is hypocrisy. This is hypocrisy and double standards. I mean, you have a country that claims to be a democracy, that is considered by the Western world as the only democracy in the Middle East, where the defense minister calls the Palestinians in Gaza as human animals. When the defense minister says they will not get water, food, or fuel, when the defense minister orders 1.1 million people to evacuate, and this is met by silence by the international community, what kind of a world are we living in? This is something horrible. Israel is basically giving the Palestinians in Gaza two options: genocide or ethnic cleansing. There's no third option. When you ask 1.1 million people to leave, otherwise they will be killed, this is two options: genocide or ethnic cleansing. And this happens in front of the world. This is the scandal, more than the fact itself that Israel is giving these orders. Mm-hmm. The scandal is that the world is watching, and still, politicians, high-level politicians, are flying to Israel to express their solidarity. The world is complicit in this crime. And I think the world is on the wrong side of history. They cannot claim, in the World War II, people were claiming, politicians, we didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking about the Holocaust.
Yes.
They were saying, some of them, we didn't know. Austrians, very, very late, admitted their responsibility. Today we have the same. They cannot claim we did not know. No, Israel said, we're displacing 1.1 million people. They say we're imposing a tight regime of no food, no water, no electricity. So either the world moves or the world will be responsible for the crimes that will be committed and are being committed in Gaza.
So you feel they're equally as complicit?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Biden just flew to Israel. You mentioned Ursula von der Leyen, for example, being one of these officials. They all say we stand with Israel. Do they stand with Palestine as well?
No.
They haven't offered any support?
When they say we stand with Israel and we have unconditional solidarity with Israel, and then period, this is something unacceptable. I would accept and comprehend saying we have sympathy with Israel after the attacks of the 7th of October. However, we remind Israel of its responsibility as an occupying power, according to international law and international humanitarian law. But they did not say this. Mm-hmm. They said we have unconditional solidarity with Israel, and Israel has the right to defend itself.
What does that mean, this phrase?
For Israel to defend itself without, taking into consideration the laws of war, the principle of proportionality, mm-hmm. respecting international humanitarian law meant for Israel is committing the crimes that Israel has been committing since the 7th of October. Netanyahu said it. We have the support of the whole world. And again, high-level politicians are today Scholz, the German Chancellor, Ursula von der Leyen, tomorrow Biden, and God knows who else will be following. So it is unprecedented in modern history that Western democracies are supporting an occupying power, a colonial, racist, apartheid occupying power in a war of ethnic cleansing and genocide against the Palestinian people.
So you would call what's happening right now genocide and ethnic cleansing?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah? If this does not stop, and stop immediately, with no further delay, it is a genocide. As of tomorrow, there will be no food. Food is running out. Water is running out. Hospitals exhausted their capacities. There is no electricity. There is no other word but to say this is genocide.
We've had quite the flurry of media stories saying that, for example, Hamas or ISIS, Hamas or Nazis. They said also that this is basically the Israelis who are the victims. Do you feel that that's a fair representation, or are they omitting the entire historical context?
Absolutely. They're taking the events of the 7th of October out of the context. Again, I have to stress again, we're against attacking any civilians. And there are so many fake news circulating. Take the issue of, the 40 beheaded babies.
Right.
That's a lie.
Yeah.
That's a big lie. But, as Goebbels said, repeat the lie.
People will believe it, yeah.
People will believe it. And by the way, they're still repeating it.
Yeah.
Although everybody knows that this is a big lie. Just the day before yesterday, the Israeli embassy here in Austria sent a letter to all embassies accredited to Austria. They're still speaking about the beheading of babies. So even Biden lied.
Yeah.
And the White House had to roll back. Netanyahu issued on his Facebook, a photo of a burned baby. Turned out that it was a burned dog. So there are so many lies circulating. Again,
yeah.
I say, we don't need really to get in this competition. There should be an international investigation, and those responsible should be held accountable.
Ambassador, you mentioned civilians. I want to ask you, is there a distinction between settlers and civilians in the context of Israeli occupation?
Settlers are illegal on Palestinian territory. Anybody who is illegal on Palestinian territory is a legitimate target. No matter. Settlers, by the way, are all armed. They're not, peaceful people. The only solution is that occupation, including settlement, should be evacuated, and occupation should end. There is no other solution. We can wait another 100 years. This is the only solution. End of occupation, end of this colonial occupation, because the Israeli occupation is not a pure military occupation, it's a colonial occupation.
You mentioned the comments of the Israeli defense minister where he called Palestinians in Gaza, quote, human animals. Naftali Bennett, the former Israeli prime minister, was on Sky News, and he was asked about Israel cutting the electricity and what will happen to the Palestinian babies who are in incubators. And he said that Israel is fighting Nazis, and he said that he said, I'm not going to feed electricity to my enemy. What is your reaction to these kinds of comments and this kind of language coming from the Israelis? Listen,
we've been hearing this language all along. You know, in the past, I forgot what year, you know, the chief of staff of the Israeli army said Palestinians are cockroaches. We have to put them in a bottle and throw them into the sea. So this is not the only time when high-level Israeli politicians are, you know, saying these racist things. It does not surprise me. What surprises me is the reaction of the international community. Nobody is mentioning this. You know, there's so many images circulating and video clips circulating of settlers dancing and singing that the schools in Gaza in September will be empty because there are no children to go to schools. They're all killed. There is another video clip showing Israelis urinating on dead bodies of Palestinians. So there are so many horrible images. Again, what is shocking is the reaction or inaction of the international community. Complete silence.
When Israel is cutting off water and electricity and food and fuel, these are indeed what constitute collective punishment, right?
Yes.
Is this anything new?
No. Israel has been doing this all along. They've been, not only in Gaza, by the way, also in the West Bank, closing of total areas, whether it's refugee camps or cities or towns, cutting the West Bank into pieces, incursions, arresting of people, keeping our tax, withholding our tax money. This is part of the reality of occupation. This is the daily life of people under occupation. So nothing is new about this.
Would you also call it collective punishment when the European Union or Austria cut off development aid to Palestine?
This is what I've called the decision of Austria to freeze and suspend developmental aid to Palestine. I issued a press release saying that this is a collective punishment, that Austria is participating in punishing the Palestinian people. And the argument of Austria that they want to, check if the money is not going to Hamas. This is actually Austria is criticizing itself.
Yeah.
So basically, Austria was not sure whether their money, Austria is giving 54% of its assistance to the medical sector. Unless they want to differentiate, hospitals shouldn't treat patients who are suspected of being Hamas members or Hamas families.
Treating Al-Qaeda members.
Yeah, 14% of their aid goes to water and sanitation. So again, I have really no other explanation but a political show, a cheap political show of solidarity with Israel. This is collective punishment of the Palestinian people.
The Israelis, as you alluded to, they ordered 1.1 million Gazans to leave and go south, and it became apparent that the safe routes they provided the Palestinians with were actually far from safe, and they bombed the very same Palestinians that they told to flee. Yeah. What's your reaction to that?
No. I mean, listen, the south is not safer than the north. We've seen that they've bombed the convoy of people leaving from north to the south. Yesterday night, they bombed Rafah and Khan Yunis, both big cities in the south. They bombed a house, killing 28 people, civilians from one family in Rafah. The same thing in Khan Yunis. So the bombing is continuing, whether north, center, or south. So the talk about the south is safer. Definitely, no place is safe in Gaza. And again, without people moving from north to south, as I said at the beginning, Gaza is one of the most densely populated area in the world. If you want to squeeze, you know, the 2.3 million Palestinians into part of Gaza, you can imagine how the situation is looking like today.
So what is the choice? Gazans can stay at home and be bombed, or leave and be bombed? Is that it?
Exactly. The only choice is that they're going to die. Again, as I said, ethnic cleansing or genocide. There is no third option.
Speaking of ethnic cleansing, the Israelis are openly floating this idea of moving Gazans into the desert in Egypt.
Yes.
I mean, they say that they want to protect the Gazans from their own operation against Hamas. If people actually do go into Egypt, do you think they'll ever see their homes again in Gaza?
First of all, I don't think, of course, you know, definitely some people would want to try to leave because simply they're running for their lives. I mean, this is a normal human behavior in every war in the world. People flee, you know, bombings and atrocities. So we cannot rule out that some Palestinians will try to go to Egypt, you know, running for safety. But believe me, the Palestinians will not accept another ethnic cleansing like the one happened in 1948. There will be, and resistance will continue until we reclaim our territory that is under occupation. The Israelis are blaming the Egyptians, you know, because the Egyptians are refusing to open. I think rightly though, they shouldn't open. The Egyptians said we will open for a humanitarian corridor, you know, because the Americans and Western European countries are pushing for opening of the borders so that Palestinians with dual citizenship, you know, with American, German, Austrian citizenship can leave. With all due respect to the consideration of these people, there should be no privileges given to people only because they hold a certain passport. They should be able to leave if Israel allows humanitarian assistance to get into Gaza. This is the Egyptian position, and we really agree with the Egyptians on this.
I was going to ask you about that, about Sisi, because he gave a speech saying that he does not advise people to come because this is a trick to retake people's homes again, and many people in Gaza, actually not from Gaza, they lost their homes.
They're already refugees, yes.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, Your Excellency, about the resistance axis, because we've seen a lot of support from Lebanon, from Hezbollah, from Syria, who both shelled Israel, Yemen, Iraq, Iran. Tell us about the role of these countries in supporting Palestine. What are your thoughts?
No, we expect, not only expect, we want a solidarity from the whole world, but particularly from the Arab world. You know, we've been always saying, of course, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not the only conflict in the Middle East. Unfortunately, there are so many conflicts. You know, we have Syria, we have Iraq, we have Yemen, we have Libya. You know, wherever you look, there is a conflict in the Middle East. However, the difference is that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the conflict that has potential to destabilize the whole region and beyond. And we're seeing this today, that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and the world has not been listening to us. We were telling them, with all due respect to all conflicts in the Middle East, this is the mother of all conflicts. If you don't solve it, there will be no stability in the whole region. That's why it was expected that we will have solidarity from Lebanon, from Hezbollah, from Iran, from Syria. This is just natural. So again, I think politicians should draw the right conclusions after this round of horrible attacks against Gaza. And the right conclusion is end this occupation. Then we will finally have stability in our region.
The Arab world. Some Palestinians say, where are the Arabs? Where are the Muslims? Why haven't they come to our aid sooner? Why aren't they doing more? Why aren't they using tools like, for example, Saudi Arabia cutting oil production, wielding the petrodollar against the West to put pressure on them? What are your feelings on that?
Listen, the world has changed, and 30, 40, 50 years ago was everything black and white in the Middle East. There is so many gray areas today. Countries are not anymore thinking and acting in national terms. They're thinking very narrowly about the interests of this or that country. This has negatively affected the Palestinian cause. The so-called Abrahamic Accords,
right?
With the Emirates and the Moroccans and the Bahrainis normalizing relationships with Israel. We have to admit that we lost a very strong card in our hands as Palestinians, because we were always saying there will be no normalization unless or until there is the end of occupation and the Palestinian. Unfortunately, these Arab countries, they've opted for normalization without solving the Palestinian question. So, of course, from that side, we're very disappointed. We're extremely disappointed. However, we know that Arabs, all of the Arabs, with their hearts and minds are with the Palestinian people. But also we know that the Arabs, regardless in which country, they're also busy with their own problems. They're busy with local conflicts. They're busy with poverty. They're busy with lack of democracy. But we are sure, we never had any doubts that the people in the Arab world, all of them, sympathize with Palestine.
Were you disappointed to see Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi Crown Prince, saying 2-3 weeks ago that he will normalize ties with Israel at some point?
We are hoping and still hoping that there will be no normalization unless there is a fair and just solution to the Palestinian problem. This has been our position. This is still our position. This will continue to be our position. At the end of the day, the Arab Peace Initiative was a Saudi initiative that was adopted by the Arab Summit in Beirut in 2002. Right. And the initiative simply says, end occupation of Palestinian and Arab territories, establishment of a Palestinian state, then all Arab and Muslim countries, by the way, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation adopted the initiative as well. And that's why we think and hope that all Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia, will stick to this initiative.
You mentioned the Arab Peace Initiative, and as you said, all the Arab countries adopted it, even though some had certain bones to pick with it. But the Israelis ultimately rejected it, and yes. It's been 30 years since the Oslo Accords. We still haven't seen the formation of a Palestinian state. When does enough become enough? What do you think the solution is here? Was pursuing the Oslo Accords the right thing to do? Trying the Arab Peace Initiative? Because it seems every time the Arabs do try to engage in diplomacy, the Israelis they just don't reciprocate.
Well, enough is long ago enough. The Oslo agreements are obsolete, because the Israelis themselves did not stick to the Oslo agreements. I mean, what Israel wanted basically is, the whole concept behind Oslo is that you have a period of what do you call it?
A transitional period.
Exactly, a transitional period that should lead to a Palestinian state. According to Oslo, a Palestinian state should have been established 5 years after the signing of Oslo. Mm-hmm. That was, 98, I think.
Yeah.
So it did not happen. So what was supposed to be a transitional period, it became permanent. This is what Israel want. They pulled out of major Palestinian cities, because Israel's long-term plan as an apartheid state is to have as much as possible land with as less as possible non-Jewish population. So they got rid of major population centers in the West Bank. They got rid of Gaza, but they want to control the rest. You know, today Israel is in control of 60% of the West Bank, military and civil control. What is left for us Palestinians is only 40% of the West Bank. And just to clarify, the territories that we claim for our state is only 22% of historic Palestine. This is less than half of what the UN partition plan gave us as a state. And we're talking about 5,000 square kilometers. I don't know, but probably this is as big as, Canton or Vorarlberg. I don't know. Yeah. It's very small. So to ask us to compromise, this equals, political suicide. So no, we will not accept less than the whole territory of 1967, of course, including East Jerusalem as capital for our state, and the evacuation of settlements, because all settlements are illegal under international law.
What do you think the solution is going forward from here? Obviously, this is once again not an easy thing to answer, but nevertheless.
No. Listen. Now the focus is on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. And specifically, the focus is on having humanitarian corridors in Gaza. The second step would be to move to a ceasefire. And the third is to quickly move to a political solution based on the two-state solution. There is no other way unless we will accept that violence will persist.
But how do you go forward when the Israelis won't entertain or contemplate any form of diplomacy?
The cycle of violence will continue. Resistance will continue. We will never ever accept occupation. We cannot live under occupation. So again, that's why I say I hope the world community will draw the right lessons from what is happening.
Would you like to say anything to the viewers, perhaps any last notes?
Well, I want the viewers to build a well-informed opinion about what's going on. The Western media is adopting the Israeli narrative, the Israeli story. I'm telling the viewers to look carefully, to put things into context, and the context is occupation, is oppression of the Palestinian people. And this is what I hope the viewers will do.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Salah Abdel Shafi, thank you so much for your time and for giving us the opportunity to interview.
Thanks for having me.